Matthew McConaughey sat down with Steven Bartlett for one of the most raw and revealing conversations you'll ever hear on the Diary of a CEO. In just 10 minutes, we've pulled out 10 unmissable takeaways where Matthew opens up about how painful childhood lessons shaped him, why struggle is the secret to success, and the bold decision that nearly ended his career but ended up saving it. He also dives deep into the crisis facing young men today, the power of faith, and what it really means to live with purpose. This is not just Hollywood talk. These are life lessons that could completely change the way you see your own path. Stay with me until the very end. You'll walk away with more than just stories. You'll walk away with wisdom you can use right now. Takeaway 1, struggle gives life its true shape. Matthew McConaughey explained that if life only gives us green lights, meaning no problems or pauses, then we end up going in circles without direction. He believes resistance, or the hard times, are what gives shape and depth to life. He said, if you have any ambition, resistance is going to come, and so own that. For Matthew, choosing to do the hard thing today usually makes life easier tomorrow, while taking the easy way today makes life harder in the long run. For example, think of someone who spends years building a small business. The struggle is painful and tiring, but those struggles make the eventual success more rewarding and give them a sense of pride that could never come from an easy shortcut. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2, childhood values built his foundation. When Steven Bartlett asked about his earliest lessons, Matthew shared that his parents taught him resilience, gratitude, and respect. His mother often reminded him, don't walk in there like you want to buy the place. Walk in like you own it. Yet in the same household, pride was quickly humbled. Success was not something you could show off for long. He also recalled strict rules where saying, I can't, lying, or saying, I hate you, were punished. These painful lessons left him with the opposite values of truth, love, and the belief that you can. For example, a teenager today who constantly hears, you are loved, but you must also respect others, will grow up with an inner strength that helps them resist peer pressure in school or work later in life. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3, hard love can still be real love. Matthew McConaughey described his family as deeply physical and emotional, but also rough at times. His parents divorced twice and married each other 3 times. Fights in the household could get violent, but they would often end in tears, hugs, and even lovemaking on the kitchen floor. Matthew said outsiders sometimes hear these stories and assume he was abused, but he insists, I knew I was loved. My brothers knew they were loved, and my second brother, who was adopted, knew he was loved. The love was tough, but it was never absent. For example, when a young child grows up in a family that is loud and full of arguments, but also full of hugs and kisses, that child often becomes an adult who is more resilient in conflict and does not immediately give up when relationships get messy. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4, his time in Australia changed everything. At 18, Matthew left for a student exchange program in Australia, expecting an adventure near Sydney. Instead, he ended up in a tiny town with 305 people, under strict house rules, without his friends, his car, or his freedom. He described himself as lost and even depressed, eating lettuce with ketchup and running 6 miles a day just to feel in control. Yet he refused to go home early because of a handshake promise he made to stay the full year. He said the harder it got, the greater the reward would be once he made it through. For example, when a young person today moves abroad for work or study and feels completely isolated, remembering Matthew's choice to push through instead of quitting might give them the courage to finish their own journey. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5, choosing film over law changed his life. Matthew was on track to go to law school, encouraged by his skills in debate. One day he picked up a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World, and it pushed him to question if he was only following a habit of doing what others expected. He realized he wanted to go to film school instead. Nervously, he called his father to ask for permission. After a pause, his father asked, "Are you sure that's what you want to do?" When Matthew said yes, his father replied, "Well, don't half-ass it." That blessing gave him the confidence to own his decision. For example, a person who works in a job they hate just because it pays well might relate. If they dare to change direction and put their full effort into something they truly love, they may find the success they were meant for. We're halfway through the video. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're enjoying it, hit the thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. If you'd like to support us, please tap the thanks button below. It helps us keep making great content. Drop a comment and don't forget to hit subscribe for more. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. Young men are lost without responsibility. One of the most powerful parts of the podcast came when Matthew and Bartlett discussed the silent crisis among young men. Matthew said, "We want and need to be relied on. We want and need to be depended on." He explained that men who live only for themselves, with no family, no team, and no community, often become depressed and lost. Too much independence leads to loneliness and a lack of purpose. For example, a man living alone in a city apartment with a well-paying freelance job but no one depending on him may look successful, but inside he may feel empty. Giving himself responsibilities, like mentoring a young person or starting a family, can bring back meaning. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. His father's death forced him to grow. Matthew's father died suddenly while making love to his mother, just as he had predicted he would. Matthew was only 22 and had just begun filming his first movie, dazed and confused. He said the death was a shock, but it dropped an anchor into his life, forcing him to embody the lessons his father had taught him. He carved the words "be less impressed and more involved" into a tree as a reminder to stop only admiring life and instead participate fully in it. For example, when someone loses a parent early, it often forces them to step up faster. They may suddenly realize that the safety net is gone and that they must now take full responsibility for their choices, just as Matthew did. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. Refusing $14.5 million saved his career. At the height of his romantic comedy fame, Matthew decided he wanted to move into more serious acting. He turned down an $8 million offer for another romantic comedy, then $12 million, and finally $14.5 million. He admitted, "I just bought myself a one-way ticket out of Hollywood." For almost 2 years, offers stopped coming, but eventually his patience paid off and he won roles like Dallas Buyers Club, which earned him an Oscar. For example, an athlete who refuses sponsorship deals that do not fit their values might struggle financially in the short term, but in the long term, they protect their identity and earn respect that money cannot buy. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. Faith and self-reliance can work together. Matthew shared that he had agnostic years where he believed everything depended only on himself. Later, he returned to faith and realized that responsibility and faith are not opposites but can live together. He said, "I believe God is going. I need your hands on the wheel, man. You are steering this." He believes that choices have consequences and that God expects us to take responsibility while also trusting that there is a bigger plan. For example, a person who prays for a better career but never sends out job applications is relying too much on faith alone. But a person who works hard on applications while believing there is guidance beyond themselves is practicing what Matthew described. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. Do not rent, own your choices. Throughout the conversation, Matthew repeated the advice from his father. Don't half-ass it. He explained this as the difference between renting and owning. Renting means doing something halfway, ready to quit as soon as things get tough. Owning means committing fully and giving it everything. He applied this to relationships, to his career, and even to spirituality. He said most relationships that we make, hire an assistant or girlfriend, boyfriend, most of them don't last the whole life. But I believe that if you go into those with the idea that I want it to be a lifer, if this works out, hopefully this is forever, usually they don't end up being that. But the owner's mentality will give you and that person the dignity and the power to be everything you can be. For example, someone who starts a workout routine thinking they might quit after a month often does exactly that. But someone who commits as if health is for life tends to see lasting results even if the specific workouts change. Here is a brief introduction about Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey is an Academy Award-winning actor, best-selling author, and philanthropist. He is known for films like Dallas Buyers Club, Interstellar, and The Gentleman, as well as his books Greenlights and Poems and Prayers. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support this channel, hit the thanks button below. It really helps us keep going. If you enjoyed this summary, please leave a like and share it in your WhatsApp groups. To join discussion about this video, drop a comment below. And for more videos like this, hit the subscribe button below.